Thank you, everyone, for joining Citizen Climate Lobby Canada's From Social Media to Local Media Empowering Change workshop. This week, we are focusing on building political will locally on social media. And these are a series of 30-minute workshops that will occur in February. Next week, we'll be looking at Blue Sky, and the following week, working with your local media. So thank you for putting your land acknowledgements or where you're calling in from in the chat. And at Citizens Climate Lobby, we respectfully acknowledge that the work that we support stretches across the homes of many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people on Turtle Island. And Canadians, you can learn more about your territorial acknowledgements and the land you reside on at nativeland.ca territory acknowledgement. And you can do lots of Googling. I'm fond of Marcus Aurelius. He was one of the great emperors of the Roman Empire before it fell, and he was a Stoic. And one of his many beautiful quotes is the following: "You have the power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So like I just said, this workshop is part of 3 workshops that will take place over 3 Tuesdays in February. This week is building political will locally on social media. Next week will be Blue Sky, and the following week will be being a local spokesperson and amplifying your voice in local media. Just a little bit about us. Citizens Climate Lobby Canada was founded in 2010, and we've been building political will for a livable world, one riding at a time by engaging in democracy and building relationships locally. Our mission is to create the political will for a livable world by empowering people to claim or reclaim their personal and political power. And here are the actions our volunteers recorded last year in building political will locally in their various regions across Canada, and we are found from coast to coast. And I hope someday coast to coast to coast, which would love to have somebody from the territories join us as well, and we haven't yet. So our learning outcomes tonight are to discover the strengths and pitfalls of social media while learning strategies to maximize engagement and foster meaningful change locally. We will specifically be looking at the X and Meta platforms, and Blue Sky will be next week. And put your ear to the ground for Reddit. Something might come out eventually, but this is our focus this week. So for those of you who are just arriving, we haven't really started yet. So this is the agenda. I just killed 3 minutes by giving a little bit of an introduction, but now we're just about to dive into the agenda tonight. So we're going to set the stage, and then we're going to look at social media in general, and then we'll look at some specific examples. And to set this stage, I would like for all of us to start thinking about the Twitter and Meta platforms and how they clash with our land acknowledgements. And then I'm going to be asking you to share books and resources that we find helpful to deal with the space that we're in. Then, with the above in mind, we're going to explore how best we can center ourselves first, and then what are some of the best practices in the Meta and X platforms. I will give some, and I hope you will share some too. And again, we'll look at specific examples of best practices as well. And I hope you share them too. So for those of you who are late, we just finished the agenda, and now we are just about to start the workshop. So as part of our work at Citizens Climate Lobby and many climate advocates, we are being, instructed or guided to be more thoughtful of how our work pertains to First Nations. And about 2 weeks ago, I was at an event where a woman gave an incredible land acknowledgement. She was a settler, and it just got me thinking about how what would a land acknowledgement look like in social media? And it really got me thinking. And the elders that I work with in my community remind me that as treaty people, so the settlers, like myself, and maybe some of you are Indigenous people, and I'd love to hear your feedback. We are the ones to do the work of reconciliation. So I really buckled down and tried to look at land acknowledgements and divide them into three different components. Truth and recognition is the first part. So we're supposed to honor Indigenous peoples as original stewards of the land, reject the doctrine of discovery, and acknowledging the lasting impacts of colonizations. As part of our land acknowledge, we're to recognize that we are all treaty people with shared responsibility, and we are to uphold the treaties through meaningful action, not just words. And our well being is tied to the land as well as the climate and the air and the water, but we use land as the metaphor. And by respecting Indigenous knowledge and committing to sustainability that honors Indigenous rights, we will all benefit. So I really meditated long and hard on the core tenets of a land acknowledgement and thought about how does that pertain to social media? Because I've really been irked by social media lately. And I came to the conclusion they totally clash. Meta and Twitter's actions clash with land acknowledgements. And I wanted to start here and then offer you a couple of solutions. So first of all, Musk, Zuckerberg, and big money control these addictive platforms, despite the original intent of the internet as to be a space for everyone. Blue Sky is starting to undo that, so I do have hope. X and Meta perpetuate colonial narratives by allowing unchecked misinformation and racism against Indigenous communities while manipulating algorithms to stoke division. That works in the opposite direction of truth and reconciliation. Lastly, by prioritizing profit over truth, bad actors erase Indigenous histories and threaten human rights, and the platforms do nothing to correct this disinformation. They extract billions without redistributing wealth, worsening economic disparities tied to colonization. Their infrastructure, data centers, cloud computing, and AI depends on mining, energy, and land appropriation, disproportionately harming Indigenous lands. Now, do have hope because the solution lies within all of us and it's beyond what is tonight. And what I'm trying to do right now is just center us of where we are working actually is clashing with the work that we're doing to be better settlers here on Turtle Island. And the solution is policy, and Citizens Climate Lobby is working on that. But we won't focus on that. But and we want to hold social media accountable, prohibit algorithmic manipulation, and rewild the internet into a space that serves the public good. And central, and we want to say this very strongly, central to this effort is consulting First Peoples, ensuring their leadership and perspectives, shaping a more just and responsible digital future. So now that we know the land upon which we are walking, it makes it easier to know what to do. So my first share I would like for you to think about is what are some of the resources that you have leaned into? I have read Maria Reza, her book on how to stand up to a dictator clearly outlines how Facebook was used to basically destroy democracy in the Philippines and Myanmar and other countries around the world. And she's warning 3 years ago this was going to happen in Canada and the United States. So, and she gives some solutions. We won't get into them. The Anxious Generation clearly outlines how our phones and digital media is making us more anxious. And then there's this data that I've just shared in the chat. Climate obstruction, climate disinformation in Canada is warning that the disinformation is like a delay in climate action. So those are three resources. I was just wondering if any of you had read anything that really helped you understand what it is like, what we're up against when we're working in social media. Would anybody like to share before we continue? If you think of something, be sure to put it in the chat. So I came across this psychologist who works at the intersection of climate anxiety and indigenous knowledge and psychology. She's a PhD in psychology, and she took a long look at how to deal with climate anxiety. And for many of us, we think the antidote for our climate anxiety is action. But she said, no, 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 no. We have to take some lessons from First Nations and how they have, dealt with 500 years of colonization. What do they do to stay active and alive and more productive in this space? And she recommended three things: nurture your inner artist, feel, create, and have fun. Find your intermediator, take the time to reflect, work with others, do your research. So don't be so reactive, like really absorb it. And most of all, take that space away from the internet and then act. So do those first two things first, and you will, have more energy for it and you will be more productive when you do it. It's a wonderful essay. So now that we've grounded ourselves, I'm going to give you some hints on how to approach the various platforms. So know your audience. For those of you who have Instagram profiles, this is where a lot of Gen Z and millennials hang out, but you might also have family and friends in there. And if you're a CCLer, you are probably following your local parliamentarians and candidates in upcoming elections. Facebook is very powerful for Gen X and Boomer women. And you probably have your local parliamentarians and candidates in there, as well as your friends and family. But Facebook has all of our groups and pages that we can lean into as well. So anytime I have a petition to sign, I'm always putting it in the groups and pages that I'm on. And now I found a hack that you can post news in Facebook by actually entering it into this URL and then hitting copy URL, and then you can post news in Facebook. It gets around the block in Canada. So if you really want to post news articles, you can do it by using our pebmac.ca, and the slides are in the chat, and you can get that resource from this slide. Some of you may be in Threads. How to work in there and who's in there in Canada is not that clear. But globally, the majority of Threads users are between 18 and 34, and it's slightly skewed more to the male, although there's specific data for Canada is not available. And you can post news directly. And frankly, Twitter, X, or whatever you want to call it, is a hellscape and the worst of them all for mental health. And the algorithms and disinformation in there are really a threat to our democracy. Some of the reasons to stay in there, again, is to cheer on climate champions, to look what's the news, what's going on globally. So that's our audience. And I just want to add one more thing, that on all of these platforms, when you post links to external websites, whether that be YouTube or news or even your own website, the X and Meta algorithms punch down your visibility. So they only like it when you produce original content. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, I would love for you to start thinking about do's and don'ts that you've learned, but I'm going to list what I have learned over the years. And if you see anything that I've missed, that would be wonderful. So be your authentic self. Try to limit your posts to a couple times a week, no more than once a day. Don't post 10 times a day. It just becomes overwhelming for everybody. Be really impeccable with your word. You want to become that trusted messenger, and I know you will do that. This is really important. When you're posting a problem, follow it through with what the solution is and give people an action that they can take. Other things you can do is cheer on climate heroes, politicians, friends, our allies, Citizens Climate Lobby. Definitely, I know my local newspapers love it when I get into news and then I get it posted online because that drives people to their websites. You can also use direct messaging to get people to sign things on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I'm just going to show you what I've done on Instagram. So I've asked all these people here to sign. We have an open letter going asking for the Elections Canada and the government to investigate Musk. And I've direct messaged a lot of people here on Instagram using the direct message, as well as here on Twitter. Just been asking people to sign this open letter that we have. So posting on your walls is not that helpful. Most people don't look at your walls, but actually getting direct messaging people things that you want them to sign really ramps up the sign-ons. Take breaks. I take like 6-month breaks from Facebook, and I don't have any of the apps on my phone. And in fact, most of my social media, especially Facebook, because I find it so addicting, is on a computer that I rarely use. And 4 big don'ts I have is never engage in ad hominem attacks, like don't attack the person. So identify the behavior as the problem. I know, don't engage with detractors, block and ignore. Don't be overly critical and alarming because this breeds cynicism, which is a big reasons why people don't vote. And it's exactly what big oil and their enablers want us to do. And you know what? You can be critical, you just have to be very careful of how you say it. A guideline that was given to me, especially in these times of polarization, is you don't have to be nice, you just have to be good. So those are best practices, and we have a little bit of time if anybody else wants to share a do and don't. And we're like 2/3 of the way through. So anybody like to share anything? Okay. And so I've shown you how to do direct messaging on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And then one thing that you can use to help you is use our official talking points and our media releases because they are highly sourced and they will be working for you. They also have great photos in them as well. So let me just show you what I mean. I'm going to go to Canada's Laser Talks and show you what I mean. Paste and go. Do you see the Laser Talks page?
Yes.
Fantastic. So for example, just been in the final stages of piecing together a Laser Talks booklet called For the Love of the Planet, Get Your Facts Straight. And so you can go in there and you can read and get ideas. It's highly organized. Um, I think this one is really exciting to read. The climate impact of your vote. I mean, like if you're trying to motivate people to vote, I mean, look at like this laser talk will just blow your mind. It's really cool. And you can also see it on our website. You can go to the website and you can see it here as well. So in 2019, if you voted for a climate friendly politician, basically, if you voted and they got elected, that means if you were in a riding and you voted for a climate-friendly politician and they got elected, that was the equivalent of living car-free for 14 years, recycling for 162 years, or upgrading 342 years of light bulbs. Because every climate-friendly vote that resulted in a climate-friendly politician resulted in an individual reduction of carbon footprint of over 30 tons. And remember the 1-ton challenge? I mean, you got rid of 30 tons just by voting. So anyways, you can use Canada's Laser Talks to help you, as well as our media releases. And I just gotta go here. The link is in the chat, how to get to our media releases, but we have our news. And you can just look at all the media releases that we've put lately, and you can get all sorts of talking points as well. So, and I was wondering if you had any examples of what worked for you. So, um, I'm not getting much feedback, which is great. At Citizens Climate Lobby, we build the political will locally. So think about how your Instagram or Facebook or even Twitter, how you can harness that locally. You could do it through direct messaging by becoming um, a trusted messenger, and just sharing information in a good way. And you can change opinions in your community if you become that trusted person. So thank you. So next week we'll be doing Blue Sky, and the following week we'll be doing spokesperson training, and that one you will be put into breakout rooms and practice interviews. So yes, Andy.
Um, Kathy, you asked a few minutes ago about things that work for us on social media.
Yes,
And
please.
and I don't have an answer, but I have a question which might be just as good almost. How do you know what works? That is, do you look at your social media analytics? How do you measure your effect?
What gets shared,
Okay, so shares.
and what gets commented on. And if I'm promoting something that needs to be signed, how many signatures it gets. So the other day, I asked about 30 friends on Facebook by direct messaging to sign that open letter that we have. And Mark reported, because Mark's following the data of the signatures, it goes, we just got a whack of signatures from Facebook. And I'm like, yeah, because I just went and asked a whole bunch of people on Facebook to sign it. So yeah, so if you had, and especially if you're using that problem solution action, and if you can track that action, then you know that you're actually having an impact through what you're posting.
Okay, thank you.
Also, Andy, I get feedback from politicians that what I put on social media does influence people. So like it does.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And I'm sure you would too. You're impeccable with your word.
I, I try with my words, but I don't watch my analytics much, and I'm always going too fast to pause and take a look at the data.
Yeah, the data is really important. And this taking time to reflect and is an important part of it. We've all got to slow down, go slow, and we'll get there quickly, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Andy. That was a great question. Anyone else? I'm going to stop sharing because I want to see who's here. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. We'll have another workshop next week, Blue Sky, and the week after that will be local media. And tomorrow at 9 p.m. is our letter to the editor writing workshops as well. And they're so much fun. So thanks everybody for coming out, and everything's good.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to
Thank
stop recording.
you.